And thank you all so much for being here today. My name is Baylee Fox. I'm a business development manager at the Greenville-ENC Alliance, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. If you're not familiar with our organization, let me just provide a little bit of a background for you. So we are a public-private partnership focused on promoting economic development in Greenville-Pitt County through things such as industry recruitment and expansion, as well as industry retention, development of sites and buildings, marketing and promotion of the community, workforce development, talent attraction, talent retention, and small business and entrepreneurship efforts, which is why we're all here today. So we're excited to launch this webinar series on a monthly basis with speakers on various topics to help small business owners and entrepreneurs start, maintain, and grow their businesses here in Pitt County. Today, we're honored to have Sharon Walker, Senior Small Business Advisor at the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, join us. She's going to share state, local, and federal requirements on doing business in our state, as well as where to find resources our state offers to help you succeed. So just a few quick housekeeping notes before we dive into today's programming. If you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll have time at the end for a Q&A, but feel free to ask questions as we're going out the presentation. Please stay on mute during the presentation, and the webinar will be recorded. So if you have to leave early, we will send a link within the next 24 hours so you can go back and review the webinar. So without further delay, let me introduce Sharon. So Sharon Walker is a Senior Small Business Advisor at the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. She is a business consultant with almost 30 years of experience in customer service, technical support, and project management. Sharon, thank you so much for being here today, and we're so excited to hear your presentation.
Thank you, Baylee. Thank you so much for inviting me. I hope everybody is having a good morning so far. Happy Monday. As Baylee mentioned, I am a small business advisor with the EDPNC, which is Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. We help small business owners and entrepreneurs navigate what the requirements are for their businesses to become compliant with the state and provide any resources that somebody may need in various stages of business. We also help with businesses expanding into North Carolina from other states and countries. And we also help with navigating other aspects of expansion. If somebody has a business that they're looking to open up other locations in North Carolina, we also assist with that too. So I am going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Let's see here. I think this is the right one. Maria, I may need your help again. Let's do this. Oh, wrong one. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Wonderful. So as I mentioned before, my name is Sharon Walker. My presentation was actually the one that my director did last week at another small business event with the North Carolina Small Business Center Network. So what we're going to do today is basically go over the steps on what people need to do to make sure that their business is compliant with the state. So this is basically what our agenda is going to be. We are, as I said, North Carolina Small Business Advisors. We are not the SBA. That is the Small Business Administration. That is a federal program. We are strictly the state. But we're going to talk about different things like vocabulary, licenses, and one of the things that we do recognize most is that when it comes to vocabulary and licensing, there are a lot of different ways to call something a license. So terminology is key, and that's one of the things that we try to educate business owners when they are trying to get their businesses started, the type of vocabulary and terminology that best gets them to the right people to talk to. So who are we? We, as I mentioned, we're the small business advisors, and you can see images of our team. We have Laurel, who is our director, then there is me. We have Monica and Oyuki, who actually are our Spanish speakers. So we do help the Spanish community. And then there is also Dodie, who is also one of our small business advisors as well. So we actually started back, just to give you some background, we started back in 1987. That's how long our team has been around. We've gone by many different names, like the Business License Information Office. Most recently, it was Business Link North Carolina, or Blink for short. And a few years ago, we went through a rebranding, and now we are the Small Business Advisors, or SB Advisors. Again, not the SBA. We are a state-funded program. We provide free resources to help you start and be successful in your business. If you think about it, we're basically your cheerleaders. We're here to support you. We're here to get you the information that you need, but we are here cheering you on because we want you to be able to start a business. We want you to succeed in starting a business. So just a little bit of a summary. These were our numbers just for last year. We took over 12,000 calls, and that's just 5 of us doing this work. We covered all 100 counties, and most of our calls were people who were starting a business. These were newly created businesses. So North Carolina, we were the top state for businesses in 2022 and 2023, and we were barely 2024's number. Virginia just beat us just by a very small margin. But this is my favorite slide. We are the only state to get number 2. We are behind New York for women-owned businesses. And that's saying a lot. New York was the only one who actually beat us out of the number 1 spot for this. So let's actually jump in. Let's actually talk about what it takes to start a business in North Carolina. So, as I mentioned before, we're going to talk about vocabulary and licensing. We're going to go over business registration. We're going to go over taxes and compliancy. And we'll talk about a few examples as well. So when you are starting a business, things to remember is a lot of times we hear things from other websites, other webinars, friends and family, but the terminology may be confusing. For a DBA, or a doing business as, that's also a sole proprietorship and a general partnership. It's actually referred to by the state as an assumed business name. The North Carolina sales tax ID number, this is just a really small portion of the titles we have heard, like wholesale license, resale number. Hey, I need a seller's permit. Most recently, I've heard a crafter vendor's license. It's all just terminology that people have used in lieu of calling it what it is, which is a North Carolina sales tax ID number. Now, when it comes to business licenses, we do everything by occupation now. We have not had a state-issued business license for almost 10 years. It was finally repealed July 1st of 2015. And this is where a lot of the terminology really gets confusing, because people will say, hey, I need a copy of your business license, but we don't have a state-issued business license anymore. So that's where a lot of confusion does happen when starting a business. And that's unfortunately where a lot of people do get discouraged. And that's one of the things that we're here to help. We're here to educate, to be able to give you this information, so that way, if something should come up and you're like, I'm being asked for what? Then we can actually help decipher what it is that they're actually asking for. So starting a business really is a lot easier than most people make it out to be. So your first step is going to be your business registration, deciding what you're going to want to do for your business. Your business registration is basically like your foundation. This is what everything else is going to be built off of when you're registering your business. And we're talking things like sole proprietorship, general partnership, LLC, corporation. If you are in somewhere in a medical field, that's where professional limited liability companies can happen, professional corporations. There's also nonprofit. These are the basic registrations. These are the first steps that you would want to do to get your business registered. One of the things to remember, though, is that you do need to do a business name search. The easiest way to do this is using the search engine on the Secretary of State's website. All businesses get listed in this database. So it's very easy to navigate. You basically are looking for what the company name is. Word starting with is a very broad spectrum for being able to search multiple names. So if you choose a name and it doesn't appear in the database as either LLC or corporation, you're good to go. But like if you see on the right-hand side, if a business name does appear, you do want to be very diligent in making sure that the name that you want to use is not already being used by another company, because this is where issues can happen. And if you use a name that is used by another company, your business registration may not go through, and you may have to come up with a variation of the name that you want to use. So let's talk briefly about nonprofits and for-profits. So with a nonprofit, they get registered through the Secretary of State's website. Fairly easy to file. It's a $60 one-time filing fee. With a nonprofit, you can also do what is referred to as a 501c3 or 501c4. 501c4, yes. These are tax designations with the IRS. These are the tax exempt statuses that as a nonprofit, if you are going to be accepting donations, you can apply for this status to be able to give this information to your donors, and then therefore they're able to take this off of their taxes. Now for-profit businesses, we're looking at sole proprietorship, general partnership, LLCs, corporation, PLLCs, PCs, even PAs. These are the for-profit businesses. These are the ones that are not going to be tax exempt. Now, a lot of people will call and say, hey, I'm looking to set up an S Corp. Well, state of North Carolina, we recognize S Corp or S Corporation as a federal tax designation. It is not an actual business structure like LLC or corporation, but you can use that tax designation and still be a LLC or be a corporation, because remember, this is just a tax designation. So when you're looking at doing your business registration, if you're going to do a sole proprietorship or general partnership, you would file those with your county register of deeds office. If you're going to do an LLC, a corporation, or a nonprofit, PLLC, they all go through the Secretary of State. And a lot of times we do hear that people have gone to the Register of Deeds office to file their LLC. They're just going to process your forms. They're not going to stop you and say, oh, you can't do this. They are just there to process the forms. So if you say that you went to the Register of Deeds office and you filed an LLC, you filed a sole proprietorship. And it is fairly easy to fix. You just file for an LLC with the Secretary of State. Now, one of the new things that is out, this is something that corporations, nonprofits, LLCs, this is something that they need to do. This is the new federal requirement. This is the beneficial ownership information. Now, this particular filing became a requirement back in January. So January 1st of this year, this is what LLCs and corporations have to do. While the filing is free, you do not need to, you do not need to pay somebody to do this filing for you. As I said, this is free. Yeah, but failure to file, there are penalties, unfortunately. And the penalties can actually be as much as $500 a day. So it is very important if you're going to do a LLC or a corporation or a nonprofit, this does need to be part of your business setup. Okay. Now, let's talk about the fun things. Everybody just loves to talk about taxes. Well, depending on what your business is going to be doing, you could have just federal taxes. You could have federal and state taxes. You definitely will probably have both. Now, the state taxes, we'll get into that for a second, but for the federal taxes, you're looking at an EIN number. It's your employer identification number, and sometimes referred to as an FEIN number, which is Federal Employer Identification Number. This is free from the IRS. There are a lot of websites out there that look like the IRS website, and they're really not. And you can usually tell because at the end of the application, they'll ask you to pay. That is not what the IRS does. This is a free number. So you would want to go to the website irs.gov. If you go to .com, .net, .biz, they're going to try and charge you for a number that is free. Okay. Now, the state tax ID number, this is the Department of Revenue. This is also a free registration. A lot of times when you're Googling IRS, EIN number, NC state, tax ID, you are going to get those ads, but this is also a free number that is issued by the Department of Revenue. Now, when it comes to the state taxes, this is going to be much broader. With a federal tax ID number, it's there for you to help you open up your business bank account, and it's also there for when you're hiring employees. Now, with a state tax ID number, it is there for hiring employees because we do state and federal withholding taxes. But there's also sales and use tax. There's also excise tax on things like tobacco. There are also taxes for rentals. If you are going to start a company that you are going to be basically renting out equipment, you still need to charge sales tax on those rentals. So that's where the state comes into play. So basically, if you remember that you're selling a product, renting out a product, or hiring an employee, you need that state tax ID number as well. Now, hiring employees. And this does get a little lengthy, and it's totally okay. Now, with hiring employees, you can hire an employee being a sole proprietorship. You can hire an employee with a general partnership. You could be an LLC and hire employees. You could be a corporation and hire employees. You could be a nonprofit and still hire employees. So when you do hire employees in North Carolina, as I mentioned, we do state and federal withholding taxes. There's also unemployment insurance that needs to be paid into. There's also workers' comp or workers' compensation. There's also a new hiring reporting guide that is actually done, I believe, by the North Carolina Department of Commerce. And that is a requirement to be able to report that, yes, your company is hiring employees. A lot of times when you hear on the news, it's like unemployment rate is either up or down. This is what helps us track what our unemployment rate is. Now, North Carolina labor posters. When you start a business, you are going to get spam. People are going to tell you, hey, you need your labor compliance posters, and for this much money. No. North Carolina labor posters are offered for free from the North Carolina Department of Labor. You do not need to pay for those. Now, when it comes to employee versus contractor, state of North Carolina, we follow the IRS guidelines when it comes to contract work. Employee means that you're taking out taxes. It means that they're expected at that particular job for however many hours, whether they're part-time or full-time. You are able to supply them with the information that they need to be able to do their jobs. With a contractor, we follow the independent contractor rules and requirements by the IRS, which is basically you can't tell somebody what to do for the job. You can't tell them when they need to be at that job. You can't tell them what, uniform to wear for that job. It's basically they work independent. They are completely independent contractor. So we're going to move on to compliance and industry. So we're talking like licenses, certifications, and what the local requirements are. And yes, when you do start a business, there are going to be local requirements that are almost certain depending on where you're located in the state. So licenses, we have occupational licensing. Remember, we do not have a state issue business license anymore. We do everything by occupation now. There's privilege licenses, which after January 1st, there's only 3. So if you are a pawnbroker, a check casher, or you do money transfers, that's where the privilege license comes into play. But other than that, there's no other privilege license needed. And there's going to be some things that are going to be more environmental, like with Department of Environmental Quality and things like that. Now, we do have a database. Thank you, North Carolina Department of Commerce. This is the North Carolina Business and Occupational License Database, also known as NC Bold. This particular website has a ton of information about the different licensing that is still in effect in North Carolina. It will also give, when you look up each individual type of license, who the actual licensing board is and their contact information, and typically a general overview of what the license actually entails. So if you're looking to become a general contractor's license. When you click on the link for general contractors, it takes you directly to the information going, you need to call the North Carolina Board for General Contractors, and it will give you their information as well. So moving on to compliance. So we're looking at things like zoning permits, business property taxes, and yes, business property taxes is sometimes a thing. And there's sometimes with storefront locations where you have to have a permit for signage. All of this is going to be the local requirements. These are going to be the local rules and regulations. Whenever you're dealing with the zoning office, and this is something that I learned as a small business owner, because I am a small business owner. I've had a small business for over 20 years, and I've had to move several times during that time frame. When you approach the zoning office, my basic go-to is to keep it simple. I mean, really, really simple. Basically, I call them up. I just tell them something simple like, hey, I have a business. Is there anything special that I need to do with you? And then I'll leave it at that. And I'll let them get me to the right person to talk to. And then I fill in the information. It's like, well, I'm a costumer by trade. This is what I do. This is, the space that I am working in. I don't have signs posted in my yard or on my house. I don't have people coming to my location. And then we start the conversation of, do I need a permit or not? Because they're going through the local ordinances. They are trying to determine, does the business qualify a permit or does it not? Now with business property taxes, a lot of times that depends on the nature of the business and what is it that you use to be able to perform that job. I have sewing machines that I still pay business property taxes on. And it does decrease over time, but it's just like with our personal property taxes. We have to pay our personal property taxes when we own a car. It's the same location, it's the county tax office, it's just a different category. It's business property taxes instead of personal. So where do you go to find forms and other things that you need to get your business registered? Well, we have our own website, we have an email address, and we have a phone number. So we do house a lot of the business forms for your business registration on our website, edpnc.com. There is a business support section where it actually takes you to our Start a Business page, where you can actually find a lot of the forms, like your sole proprietorship forms, getting your assumed business name filed. If you have to amend a filing, a lot of those forms are on there. Your LLC filing, your PLLC filing, your corporation filing, getting your EIN number. We house a link to the online application on our business forms page. We try and make sure that you have access to this information so that way you don't end up on a website that tries to scam money out of you by making you pay for an EIN number. We also have the toll-free number that you can call us Monday through Friday. Our phones stay live from 8:30 until just about 4 o'clock, where what you can do is you can talk to an advisor and we will actually send you an email that is tailored to what your business needs are going to be, whether it is a barber shop or a child daycare center, or if it's going to be companion care for elderly seniors. We can tailor this information directly to you. So this is what our new website looks like. So we went through revamping back in May, so our website is much more streamlined. But one of our favorite quotes is this quote: "If you have big dreams, you've come to the right place." We are a free resource. We are here to help, and we will be your biggest cheerleaders. So, business resources. So, business resources, these are some of our partners: North Carolina Small Business Center Network, SCORE, SBTDC, NC Bold through Department of Commerce, because we are technically basically an extension of the Department of Commerce itself. We still partner with them for quite a bit of what business needs are for the small business owner in the state of North Carolina. These are some of our other partners: Department of Revenue, Commerce, Secretary of State, Rural Center, IRS, Department of Agriculture. They're pretty much every board in the state of North Carolina we partner with, and we talk to them regularly to find out what laws have changed. What do we need to make sure that we are conveying correctly to our callers to make sure that they're getting the necessary information that they need to be able to start their business. These are some of the funding resources that we also provide. SBA.gov, remember that's the Small Business Administration, not us. We're the state, they're federal. We also provide information about the CDFIs. These are the Community Development Financial Institutions. These are the ones who don't have necessarily the same rules and regulations as FDICs, which like Wells Fargo and Bank of America. They have other rules and regulations when it comes to business loans. CDFIs, they do something slightly different. There also is Operation Hope. Operation Hope is actually, excuse me, one of our newest partners. They do a lot of workshops and they just started a mentorship program. These are experts in how to write business plans. They can help you with that information along with some of our other partners, but Operation Hope, really, they're experts at this. And so is the North Carolina Small Business Center Network, and so is SCORE. So there's 3 resources right there just in being able to make sure that your business plan looks like a business that can be fundable in the state of North Carolina. Now, certifications. Now, certifications are going to be, especially if you're looking at doing government contracts. You could be a woman-owned business. You could be a minority-owned business. You can be a historically underutilized business. You can be a veteran business. You can actually be a veteran-disabled business. The trick is deciding if you fit into multiple categories. You need to pick one category. So you can call yourself a woman-owned business and a minority-owned business and still be a veteran and get your certification with the veteran status. So you do have to pick one. Okay, so there's several websites here where you can actually get these certifications. The Women's Business Center of North Carolina can help with getting the women-owned business certification. SBA.gov, The VA no longer does the veteran certifications. Everything switched over to the SBA. And of course, there's also North Carolina admin. They can also help with certifications. So what else do we do? Well, we do a lot of different events throughout the year. We do the Women and Minority Business Summit. We do things with VBOC, which is the Veteran Business Outreach Center, especially the ones down in Fayetteville. We do events with Triangle Artworks. We do events with the Pride Life organizations. And we just now started working with the, let's see here, I'm not going to actually say this in Spanish. It's basically the consulate for Guatemala. I will always trip up when I try to speak Spanish, which is why I let Oyuki and I let Monica do that for me. So yeah, but these are different events that we work throughout the whole year. And a lot of these organizations are our partners. So we work together, we bounce ideas off of each other, and we get them information that they need to be able to give to their callers as well. So this is the end of my presentation. This is who we are. This is how to reach us. Our phone number, as I said, is a toll-free number. You can call us. We are a free resource. We are here Monday through Friday from 8:30 until just about 4 o'clock. Or you can email us at sbadvisors@edpnc.com. We are more than happy to help, and we are definitely here to cheer you on.
Well, thank you so much, Sharon. That was great. And even I learned a lot from that, knowing we previously worked together. I took a lot away from that. So thank you so much for that detail, deep down into what you guys do. But I wanted to go ahead and get started with some Q&A. Feel free to drop any questions that you have for Sharon into the chat. I'll moderate, and then feel free to unmute as we're going through questions if you want to share any additional context. And while I'm giving you a second to write some questions in, I want to go ahead and let you know that our next scheduled webinar is scheduled for Monday, October 21st. It's going to be at 11:30 a.m. again. This next webinar will be with Attorney Jane Francis Noel of Warden Smith. She'll cover some essential legal aspects for small business owners, including business structure, succession planning, entity choice tax considerations, contract basis, and risk management. Participants will gain practical knowledge to navigate the legal landscape associated with starting and owning a small business. Registration is now open, and I'll send it out in a follow-up email after today's session. Additionally, I did want to let everyone know that we're conducting a small business survey through our organization to evaluate small business resources here in Pitt County. We really want to best assist how we can support small businesses and entrepreneurs in the county moving forward. So I would greatly appreciate if you guys would take the survey so we can gather your feedback just to see moving forward how we can best align these resources here in Pitt County. I'll also include that link to the survey on the follow-up email. Oh, thank you, Maria. I appreciate that. Okay, so our first question is, when do you amend a filing, and is there a time period?
Well, it kind of depends. When it comes to the time period, the state would prefer that if you have to do any type of amendments, try and do it within 60 business days. No, I'm sorry, 60 days. As far as the type of amendment, it's going to depend on your business registration. Like if you have an LLC, you can file an amendment of articles of organization for limited liability company. A lot of the registrations through the Secretary of State's office, those amendments can be done online, but you still have to fill out the form and attach it. If it's going to be an amendment to a sole proprietorship or general partnership, those particular amendments need to be done in the county that the original business registration was performed. So if you were in Mecklenburg County and you moved to Union County, Mecklenburg County is where the amendment would need to be filed. But the amendment forms are pretty straightforward. They're usually really short, maybe 4 or 6 questions, depending on the form. And the prices do range depending on the type of amendment that you're actually doing. But amendments can pretty much be done at any particular point in time. But as I said, the state would prefer that if something does change, that the amendments are done within 60 days.
Thank you, Sharon. Our next question is, how does a company obtain a tax number? A
Depending
state
on,
tax number.
a
Sorry.
state tax ID number,
Yeah.
that goes directly through the North Carolina Department of Revenue, ncdor.gov. So depending on the type of tax ID number that you need, whether it's a withholding tax ID number, a state tax ID number, or a different type of tax ID number, that's usually the NCBR form. That is the North Carolina Business Registration Form. The full title being the North Carolina Business Registration Application for Income Tax Withholding, Sales and Use Tax, and Other Taxes and Service Charge. It is a very long title, but we just call it the NCBR for short.
Good to have an abbreviation for that one.
I'm waiting for somebody to say that title 5 times fast.
And now, is that something that your team could assist with too, is if somebody's unsure of which one they need to kind of
Yeah,
pivot over? Okay.
we can kind of guide them through trying to determine exactly what they need the tax ID number for, and be able to navigate what form it is that they need to file and how to how to fill it out. Some of those questions we are trained to be able to answer. Some questions usually are best left for the Department of Revenue to answer.
Gotcha. So this is a question, it says, and I think this is more directed towards us, I'll read it out for the group, that we mentioned some upcoming sessions. Do we have a link or a list, specifically something on helping businesses with the #1 challenge, access to business capital? Sharon, I will let you also share if you have any other direct resources that speak a little bit on capital, just looking at a state level. But yes, we do have some upcoming webinars that we're happy to share for the next, I think we have the next 4-ish months planned out. So we try to normally look a month ahead, but we can share a list of, and I'll send that in the follow-up email today, of what our next few months are going to look like and the themes based around those. But I'll also give Sharon a minute just to pinpoint on any specific state level things you'd like to throw out on capital.
Oh, goodness. So when
I know there's a lot.
So when it comes to looking for capital, that's where we usually will refer out to the CDFIs, because that being in partnership with the CDFIs, they go into a lot more explanation of business capital and how to be able to make a business fundable, where we strictly deal with what the rules and regulations are to make sure that your business is compliant with the state. So places like our partnership with Operation Hope, the North Carolina Small Business Center Network, and SCORE, they all have classes on being able to teach people how to make their businesses fundable, how to look for capital, how to look for funding, how to look for grants. Anything that has to deal with capital, those are the resources that we refer out to. And SCORE does most of their stuff online, but the Small Business Center Network, they will usually host events throughout the year. Operation Hope, they have locations throughout the whole United States. So depending on where you are, more than likely, there's going to be an office near you.
I'm not seeing any more questions here, but I'll go ahead and give just another minute if anybody has anything else they'd like to add. But I just wanted to thank Sharon again for sharing her time and expertise with us today, but also thank you all for attending. I really hope that you have had several takeaways from today's webinar that will help you continue to grow your business here in Pitt County. And just a reminder, if you joined late and would like to rewatch this content, this recording will be shared and emailed to you later today, as long as a link to register for upcoming webinars as part of the series. We really do appreciate you for joining us today and hope to see you next month.